You didn't win the prize?
No,
You know what that means?
no. What?
It means you have no skills and you're a loser! I'm a winner, see my prize. You're a loser who sits and cries.
How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to yet another Wizard101 Pack review. The video where I spend money on packs so you guys don't have to. And today, we are going to be reviewing the latest pack, being the Marleybone Motorist Pack. I'm actually super excited about this pack because I've seen lots of pictures of it. It looks pretty amazing. And finally, after spending like around 30k crowns, I probably got the gear at around 15ish, maybe even 20ish k crowns. But since I never realized about the items on the bank, I happen to get a lot more copies of the stuff, which is fine because I think aesthetically it's amazing. But it did kind of suck because I spent it more than I needed to. However, at the same time, I was able to get a permanent mount, so I think it was kind of all worth it in the end. Now, for those who know, but if you don't know, I based this review on a 10k crown opening. The things I go over are going to be the aesthetics. I'll be going over the gear, showcasing its stats and doing comparisons, see if it's good for PvE or PvP, and then finally I give my final verdict. And I base my score in a 5-point score. So 0 or 1 being really bad to 5 being almost flawless. But without further ado, let's get started with today's review. Now, first things first, we're going to be going over the Autoist set here. Now, as you can see for the gear, or for the aesthetics, we have this train, the Autoist train. This is the only perm one I got, and this is essentially like a brown with baby blue. Looks really solid. Really love the look for it. And I honestly wonder, where are the other 4 people going to be on? Are they going to be inside these seats? Are they going to be like on these rails? My guess is maybe the rails, but I'm actually really interested to see. This is a super good looking mount, and I think it was intentional to make it like this. Otherwise, they probably would have changed it. But if somehow they decide to increase the size, well, it could be considered as one of the biggest mounts in the game. Which, honestly, I don't mind either way. But I do like the way it looks like right now. Now, finally, in terms of just the gear itself, we have what looks like very similar to the Cool Ranch gear. However, what I do like about this is that there's some extra touches that makes it still very unique from Cool Ranch. And the biggest thing being, obviously, the hairstyles with the little goggles on it and the gloves, which I think are the biggest added touches that makes this aesthetically unique. So I'm actually a really big fan of the aesthetics. Now, this gives me that engineering look, which is really awesome because I am actually planning to become a future engineer. And basically what I'm saying is that this pack is made for me. I'm kidding, but it looks really good. I really like the wrench. I think it's just a simple and clean looking thing. Probably not the most pleasing thing to look at, but it is very unique, so I don't really mind it at all. I think it looks really good. But obviously, you can definitely see this gear in lots of stitches. You have the paw print to represent Marleybone, and you have that baby blue trim, like I said before, with the mount. So, looks really solid. Now, before I forget, we also have the cute little blimp. And one thing that I've noticed about the blimp, thanks to Twitter, is you can actually get hybrids of this pet. As you can see, it's cute little audio animation with the little nuzzle, super cute. I was really impressed when I found this out on Twitter because someone decided to get the fire blimp and the myth blimp, and then they created the life blimp. So my assumption is maybe you'll be able to get all 7 versions of blimps, maybe. But the fact that you could just make hybrids is really cool. Haven't seen this in packs for quite a while. Now, it could be because I haven't really been paying much attention to it, but I do think this is super solid, and I'm really a big fan of this for sure. Now, finally, we have ourselves the second gear showcase in terms of aesthetics. This one's going to be the Motorist. Now, we're going to take a spin around just to see how it looks like overall. We have the green with yellow look to it. Looks really solid. Absolutely love it. I think it looks really good. Probably one of the best mounts in the game out there, aesthetically. And we have the gear here. As you can see, biggest difference being the hairstyle, and obviously some differences in trim as well. This one has a slightly lighter brown color with a dark green trim. And in terms of just the pet, we have the Myth Blimp here, which is absolutely adorable, and seems to be that this is the one that matches with this set overall. And finally, for the final piece, we have my most favorite set, which is the Traveler set. Now, I'm super biased on this one because I really like the mixture between red and blue, and like the Cool Ranch set, again, being biased with red and blue, it's the same thing that applies here. Now, as you can see, we have the train, Traveler's Train, which, like I said before, being biased, but it's my most favorite. I wish I got this one permanent, but I don't mind the one I got in because I think all the trains look really good aesthetically. And its ideal animation is basically just some jumps, nothing really too special. Probably one of the more basic ideal animations, which, you know, is a little bit, you know, but it doesn't really ruin the mount for me at all. But in terms of just the gear itself, just showcasing what the gear is, you have the gray jacket, and like I said, being biased, but this definitely is the best looking one. Because I really just love the gray trim, the gray base with the blue and red trim. You have the fire blimp that also looks super adorable. And again, different hairstyle overall, which is definitely a plus in terms of keeping the aesthetics very unique in its own way. And I'm just a really big fan of it for sure. However, if we're comparing this stat-wise, these are very interesting stats for sure. These are going to be the stats for the hat. These will be the stats for the the robe. These will be the stats for the boots finally. And we will have the stats for the wand, along with the fire blimp coming with an immolate. If we were to showcase the motorist set, which is going to be a really interesting thing we can compare in just a few seconds, we'll have the pet giving the myth blade for the myth blimp. Here are the stats for the hat. Here are the stats for the boots. Here's the stats for the wand. And finally, the one I skipped was the robe. And it's because we're going to be doing a comparison in this one. Now, a lot of people have been saying that this could be really good for PvP. I am one to agree that this could be really good for PvP depending on what you're rocking. Now, I'm not sure if I'll be using this myself, but the fact that I do have some of this is actually really good because who knows, I might be able to use it for some characters. As you can see here, at least if we're comparing it to Myth, this already overtakes it in health department. This overtakes it in the crit block department, or the block rating department, resist department, shadow rating department. It does lose a little bit of pierce, but not that significantly. But the biggest difference is really just going to be the incoming healing and the extra accuracy for Myth. However, I do think that the robe could have its use for sure, depending on what you plan rocking overall. If we were comparing it to Cool Riders, which is another popular setup that Myth Wizards tend to use, you begin to see that, again, overtakes it in health, overtakes it in pip chance, block. It's the same for pierce, and overtakes it in resist along with shadow rating. If we had a 140 version of this, it might still overtake it in probably everything I just said, but not as much. However, it still will be a little bit better compared to what the Cool Riders actually is. So it is interesting for sure, and I could definitely see why it could be considered as a pretty good PvP setup for some schools for sure. Now, finally, let us go ahead and do some comparisons for this pack. We will be comparing the Autoist set with the Myth stats. Now, as always, we're going to be comparing with specific gear types, like the Savannahs, because it's still kind of considered one of the best PvE gears out there. And we're going to also be comparing this time to Vanguards, because I think it's actually really close to what Vanguards is. Obviously, this beats it in the health, pip chance department, and the critical department is given to Vanguards. Pierce department is given to Vanguards for the specific school. And obviously, this has the accuracy as the bonus. But this also overtakes it in damage, and this takes it in shadow rating. So honestly, pretty good. You know, it's very close to what Vanguard's actually is as a gear set, so that's actually pretty solid. If we were comparing it to Savannah's, which I would say will be one of the best gears to rock for PvE if you don't happen to have any Vanguards or Dragoons. You can see that this already overtakes it in the health department, power per chance department. Accuracy is replaced with Pierce. We already have it overtaken in the critical department. This overtakes it in damage department, and shallow rating is the same. Now, if this had a 140 version, most of the overtakes will still apply regardless, because they probably won't change that much. But the one thing I will say is the reason why I think that the Autoist will be slightly better compared to Savanas this time around is because with the stat changes, or in this case the limit function that kind of caps your damage in a certain way, where you can technically get up to like around 200% damage in PvE, but you start to see changes at around 150% damage. And I might make a video just talking about this later, about my personal opinions about, you know, specific pets that might be really good for PvE. Again, some people might disagree, but this is just my personal opinion. The thing about the whole change is that in PvE, at least for my Fire Wizard, he used to rock around 190 damage overall with an all damage Frilosaur with set bonus. Now, with all that being said, I have 173 damage. If I was to rock the double crit, or we're talking about School Assailant with Striker, and we have triple damage with a Selfish Will socketed to increase some stats, I will get 170 damage on my fire, but more crit. Now, what I'm trying to say here is, depending what you rock, you might want to go for more crit. The reason why is because once you hit around like 150% damage in PvE, it's kind of incentivizing for you to rock some other stats so that you don't really have to worry about those diminishing returns. And for PvE, one of the more recommended sets to use will probably be critical. So if you happen to have gear that gives a little bit more critical and you still technically keep your offensive stats intact, then you might want to go with that over just going for more damage and having to deal with diminishing returns. So that's why I think the Autoist is going to be better than Savanas this time around. It's kind of crazy to say that, but it is true. Here's the stats for the robe, which we won't make comparisons because this is actually the second best, I think. The first best that we did showcase already is the best one you can get for robes. And finally, for the boots, let's actually compare them to Dragoons. Now, as you can see, you know, this takes over in the health department, and that's about it really, other than rating. But the fact that it's super close to Dragoons is actually really good in terms of how good this gear set is for PvE. If we were to compare it with the Savannah boots, which again, like I said before, used to be the best overall PvE gear you can rock if you don't happen to have Vanguards or Dragoons, you can see that this already overtakes it in health department, power per chance department. Accuracy is replaced with resistance, which will be really good. The rock resistance, this is basically really close to what Nimbari was. And the reason why this is good is because you can have a little bit more of a chance to survive a series of hits from your opponents if they tend to crit pretty often. This already overtakes it in the crit department, and this overtakes it in the damage department. But like I said before, you may want to rock a little bit more crit depending on what you're rocking, because you want to increase the multiplier. Because the more crit you have, well, the more the multiplier is going to be, based on the enemy's block, obviously. But generally, if you have more crit, you will have a slightly higher multiplier, which could definitely make a pretty huge difference. So, personally, really love the gear stats for this. Now, the wands are not that great. Like I said, fossils is still going to be the best for PvE, and it's mainly because of the set bonus here. For example, Myth will basically give this one being like theoretically 25 damage, and being a 131, it already overtakes a 141, so this is still going to be the best wand overall. Not to mention that it already takes over in the critical department as a 131. So in terms of wands, wands are aesthetic only, not really great for PvP either because it doesn't come with Pierce. So what do I think overall about this pack? Honestly, I think I was a little bit too harsh on this pack for sure, and it's because I based it on the quality of the loot that I've gotten from the pack And really, in terms of the quality of the loot from the pack, it's not that great if you're not getting the exclusive stuff from the pack, because what you get will be housing items you could get from vendors or bazaar, pets you could get from vendors, or you could get them through hatching. You'll get TC that might be useful for Decathlon, like Storm Sweeper, I believe it's its name, Street Sweeper. And again, not really worth an investment for going anything other than for the exclusive stuff from the pack. Pretty useless snacks. Plants were pretty meh. You do get Ivy League, but you can get Ivy League through various methods a lot easier and not having to spend a dime in packs. So with all that being said, really the highlight of this pack is mainly going to be just what comes from the pack itself. Because with Cool Ranch, you did get some unique housing items. In this one, I think the most unique housing item will probably be one you can craft, or one that's specifically with crowns, which is just a statue, which doesn't really like give reason for the pack to be considered amazing in terms of what's exclusive in terms of housing items. But in terms of the aesthetics, it is phenomenal. The secret stuff in terms of being able to make hybrids for the blimps is phenomenal. And you also get some really good stats that are now going to be considered, in my opinion, a really good Savannah replacement, which I never thought I would see the day. With a robe that could be argued to be pretty good for PvP based on the changes that have been made recently. So overall, I'm giving this pack a 3.5 out of 5. And hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I hope that was informative for you guys to make a really nice and informed decision about getting this new pack. I do think it's a pretty solid pack, and I was a little too harsh on it. But again, let me know what you think. As always, check out the playlist for all the pack review videos to see if you want to know more information about one of the packs that you may have never opened before. And as always, remember to stay frenzy. Peace.